Hello viewers, welcome to my Doctor Who themed YouTube channel, Who Ventures, and this video is discussing River Song and marriage because there was a bit of debate that I was sort of involved in on the spoilers and speculation thread on Gallifrey Base, and it turned into a bit of a shipping thread for a while. But I want to sort of discuss River Song and marriage. So, according to some sources, well, apparently by the way, spoilers by the way, for the Christmas episode. So, if you want to turn off now to avoid the spoilers. Okay, apparently the Christmas special in River's timeline takes place straight after Angels Take Manhattan. So there's been some weird comments about River being slutty because she's flirting with all these other guys, and then there was a comment that said, which I've come to realise now is confusing, because they said, oh, but she's seen his grave on Trenzalore, she thinks he's dead. But isn't it, correct me if I'm wrong, but if this takes place in River's timeline straight after Angels Take Manhattan, then there's been nothing about Trenzalore yet. She hasn't been to Trenzalore, she doesn't know about Trenzalore. So, and when she was at Trenzalore, that was after she died and met Ten, and she was actually a ghost. So if this does take place after Angels Take Manhattan, then she doesn't know the Doctor's dead, because she has just departed from 11. 11's gone off to Victorian London to have a big sulk and live on a cloud for however long, and River's gone off to, according to the Christmas special, to, obviously we don't know why yet, although I really want spoilers because they actually did broadcast this at a BFI event, so people have seen it, but I can't find spoilers and I really want them. But so the 11's gone off to Victorian London, so according to this timeline, River Song knows that 11's alive and upset and sulking, and she's gone off, and according to the write-up for the Christmas special, she's meant to have married a few other blokes. And then one of the arguments says, yeah, but she thinks 11's dead, she's been to Trenzalore, but if this takes place after Angels Take Manhattan, then River hasn't been involved with Trenzalore stuff yet. So she knows that she's still technically married and is like marrying other blokes. So that argument falls down a bit. But this is also a thing where there was like gossip that's saying River's a slut, which is not a very good word to use, because she's like so-called married these other men and is flirting and kissing these other men in front of the Doctor when she doesn't know that's the Doctor. Because obviously she hasn't met him yet, because that Doctor only occurs after 11's already gone. I'm confused. It's confusing, but I wanted to say that I am trying my best to like River, because I have been like a bitchy fan in the past and really whinged about it, mainly because it's the writing, because compared to the other women that Stephen Moffat has wrote, I think River is the most shallowly written character. He could have made her a better character if he hadn't introduced the spoilers and hello sweetie catchphrases in the first place. The fact that she has these words and catchphrases connected to her that aren't really like Clara's thing of run you clever boy and remember, that actually had a deeper meaningful statement about it, but River's is hello sweetie. That's not meaningful, it's just daft. So, and I think it's a cliche, but see, the thing is, but if we look at River, and if we're going to look at a marriage and say there's a character who is married to the Doctor, and then we can see that River and the Doctor do not have a traditional Earth marriage of like lobsters and mating for life. The traditional example of marriage, which it wasn't an actual marriage, but the traditional example of what we recognise as a perfect husband, soulmate, mate for life marriage was Rose and 10. Well, Rose 9 and 10, because she was determined to stay with the Doctor. And I like that bit where it says you can be with me for the rest of your life, which is what Rose wanted. So that is technically the actual traditional marriage in the show. So Rose was more of the traditional loving wife, spouse expectation of marriage than River, because River was basically, well, if she probably would have turned out a bit more of a decent person if she'd allowed to be raised by Amy and Rory, which is a shame that the Doctor didn't allow her to be raised by Amy and Rory. But obviously if he changed it, then 10 would have been in a bit of trouble. So she was born to be like, she was born as a baby, and then she was stolen and brainwashed to be obsessed with the Doctor and want to kill the Doctor. So to start off, that's not a very good start for a monogamous marriage. And second, so she's raised to kill the Doctor, and then there's a big gap, and somehow she goes from a new regen little girl and managed to get to England, and at some point turns into Mal's and lives with Amy and Rory, and she has the job of actually trying to get Amy and Rory to realise that they love each other and they are meant to be together. See, that's a very odd relationship with her parents. And then she turns into River, but she's still Mal's then, and she turns into River, and then she's shown that this is the man. So it's sort of an arranged marriage rather than a natural increasing of feelings like Rose was, which is kind of why I like the Rose story better. I do like Russell T Davies's era a lot better. So she's given the template, this man, this is River's song and you're going to be with him. So she's got this fixed template, and you have to kind of think that if she's been forced into boxes and forced to, right, this you're destined, you're meant to be with them, you've got to be with them, then maybe you would rebel, because she's forced to be obsessed with this, and maybe you just let loose and rebel and say, no, I don't want to be forced into that. I want to check out all the other blokes, because come to think of it, I know it's the writing mainly that annoys me with River Song. It's the fact that Stephen Moffat insists on having flirtiness, insist on sexual comments, which I think don't need to be there. And it doesn't need to be rude to be an intelligent show and explore stuff, which I find that kind of irritating. But the fact that she's been given this set destiny of this is the Doctor, you're going to be with her, and then said she just wants to dip her toes in the rest of the ocean to find all the other fish. Basically, it's both of them are forced together, and he was forced to do the marriage ceremony because she screwed up and created a completely different universe that got stuck, and the universe and everything was going to die if he didn't fix it back again. So as much as people say, oh, it was fair enough, it was a real marriage, and it's it was hardly the ideal marriage situation, and especially when it was a hand fasting and it wasn't actually his hand, it was a robot's, a Tesselector's hand. He wasn't even physically at the wedding. So yeah, it's a real wedding and they can say that's wife and husband, but you can't really say that that is traditional example of two people very much in love, both wanting the perfect wedding ceremony for them both, and actually planning the wedding ceremony and having her parents there, but her parents didn't even really get that they were her parents and that they were together or anything. So and the fact that they haven't so far gone, you know what, that wedding in the alternate timeline, it was a bit of shit. If we really love each other, want to be together, why don't we have a proper big full on wedding? But they haven't done that, and it's just you can't say she's the most perfect person and then you can't say she's a slut, because that's ridiculous, because it's not a traditional marriage is basically what I'm saying. Apparently there's a guy called Ramon in the Christmas special, and from the very tiny glimpse of him we've seen in some of the trailery bits, he looks quite fit, so I don't actually blame her for snogging him because he does look dishy. But yeah, they're not technically, it's not an all-encompassing big romantic connection, which I'm not trying to do a spoiler war here, but it was, we saw, and Stephen Moffat has these ways of putting, oh, we did this at night time, ooh, she's quite the scream. He writes things like what they meant to do, but he doesn't, like Russell T Davies, he showed on screen and it was a natural blending of the story, and the emotions naturally were drawn together and interlocked together. But with Stephen Moffat, he just writes a line, and because you don't see it on screen, or the chemistry isn't as good as Billie Piper and David Tennant, it's hard to see the connection. And I have been a bit, over the years that River's been in the show, I have been a bit of a grumpy hypocrite, I guess, about being a grump about River. And it would have been good, I think she would have been a more rounded character if there'd been more about Oh, also the fact that if this does take after Angels take Manhattan take place after that, then I was thinking that River went back to see Amy and told Amy to write another bit in the book. So if River could actually get to Amy and stay there, River just seems to not want, because she's been forced to be obsessed with the Doctor, she seems to not want a permanent connection with anyone. She doesn't want to be locked into anything, locked into any relationship, because when we see her in her first ever episode, she clearly has been flirting outrageously with all her archaeology team. So we've known she was, if they're going to say this, we know that she's unfaithful from the very first episode, and she's so never been completely faithful because she doesn't want to be, because she's been forced into this box, and it's just forcing someone to just be one thing and never being free. And actually her freedom is flirting with lots of other people, because that's how she's breaking through from this destiny that's been forced on her since she was a little baby. She's never had a life where she's been allowed to just be free and grow and explore her options, like people options, and explore who she's just been forced into going after the Doctor. And I think that's why, if they were together in one, if she was a permanent companion, I think that just goes against her story, and she that's why she runs away from 11 when they could have gone off with adventures together, because she's been forced into that all along, and then she just wants to break free, because and flirting with these other people is breaking free, and her loose conception of what a married life is more flexible than what a traditional monogamous married life is. And the monogamous married life is what she wants for her mum and dad. She wants her mum and dad. It's like teenagers in the 50s, like there was mum and dad together, and she wants that together traditional partnership for her mum and dad. But as a teenager, she just wants the teenagers in the 50s, they wanted to break away from the parents and just be free and just rock and roll and all that, and taste what's out there. And that's what River's doing. So in a kind of way, I guess I do kind of like her, but I don't think she'd work as a permanent companion, because that would go against her philosophy of grabbing her own freedom and rebelling against this Doctor and River together forever. Because basically the Doctor is rebels against that a bit too, because if he wanted to stay with River, then he wouldn't have gone looking for Clara, and he wouldn't have punched through adamantium or something wall for billions of years for Clara. He would have said, that was sad, Clara's gone now, I'll move on. Although he was tricked to go in the confession dial. But and Clara and the Doctor had to be like prized apart because it was too dangerous for them to be together. And it's a bit like people want to, it's the opposite with River and the Doctor, and people want to push them together, but they don't want to be together, they want the freedom. And I think that's the thing. I don't know if I'm going to watch that Christmas episode on Christmas Day. I think I am probably going to just miss watching it on Christmas Day and then read the forum and then eventually watch it, because that's what I did with Angels Take Manhattan. I just read about it a lot, then eventually I watched it. I don't know if that was because it was sad about Amy and Rory, but that's what, I guess that's kind of how my 11th Doctor episode review sort of fizzled out, because I was annoyed at River Song, and I don't know, because like watching I'm sort of started watching Clara's storyline again, like from, well, not from Asylum of the Daleks, from Bells of St. John, just looking for all different clues and stuff, and that's fun, and it's really nice to see Matt again. And I'm also reading Time, I think it's called Time Trips or something, and I'm reading a story, the one about the 10th Doctor, and it's brilliant, and I think it's by Nick Harkaway, and the way he writes some of the stuff is similar to how I wrote some of 10 in my fan fiction, so I'm thinking of possibly doing more 10 fan fiction, because it's so much fun, because you can do all the, take the piss out of his like way you're talking, and just do all this wibbly wobbly timey wimey lampy wampy stuff and do all that. It's quite fun to write actually, 10 is. So I'm thinking maybe, although it might be a bit of a struggle, because writing, portraying like my ideas and writing doesn't really come naturally to me. So, but I kind of might try it. And then I wonder where the fan fiction for Clara and Jane Austen is. That would be fun to read. I plan to do, well, obviously I plan to do mine in pictures, and then I'm planning to do some fan art, which is like my character and meeting up with some other people. That would be fun to do. So this was the video of my thoughts about River Song. I was going to just write it on Gallifrey Base, but then I thought maybe I could, I'd rather just express it and talk about it, because, well, for starters we keep going off topic, which is not allowed. So that's, and I also think it would been good if we'd see it, like, that's the trouble I have with Stephen Moffat's companions, is the families. He writes families, like Russell T Davies, the families were part of the show, part of the plot, and a continuous part of the companion's life. But with Stephen Moffat, he writes, oh, this family member pops up in this episode, then we never hear from them ever again. And he's just really bad at that. It's like when Amy finally got her mum and dad back, her little dad, and they were at the wedding, and then Amy and Rory went off with 11, and we never heard from Amy's parents again. And that's so frustrating that that Stephen Moffat seems to think it's okay to just say, here's Clara's gran, okay, that's it. It doesn't integrate the families into the companions' lives at all. It just says, here's Clara's gran, oh, here's her dad, oh, what's going on here, oh, right, we're finished with that. And it's just so frustrating, and what was so frustrating, that we got Brian Williams, the best of Rory's dad. He's amazing, and I loved Rory's dad, he was lovely. But we hardly got anything with him, hardly got any stories with him. We got about 2 stories with him, and it's such a shame that, and also it's a shame that they've never had Brian Williams interact with River, and her being his grandchild and Grandad Brian. That would have been really good, and then he could have sort of had like fatherly chats with, well, obviously we didn't really get to have fatherly chats much with Rory even. It would have been nice if they'd had like bonding fatherly chats and guidance. And Amy says, be a good girl, River, and well, River's not, but it would have been more interesting to see the bonds of the family. And it's just Steven Moffat, he does write some good stuff, but it's so frustrating that he just introduces things and just leaves threads hanging, and it's so frustrating because he can write some beautiful words and beautiful lines, and then he just does not tie it all up together in a bow. It just like leaves bits of ribbon lying about. Whereas Russell T Davies, he started his stories and then tied them together and into a complete whole that, and they just felt complete and resolved. But Steven Moffat, it's like Jackson Pollock. So Steven Moffat is a bit of a Jackson Pollock with his way of shoving. It's like, oh, put a bit here, put a bit of that in, put a bit of that in, but it's still scattered. Whereas Russell T Davies, which artist would he be like? He's like an artist who has complete picture, fully painted, and there's no gaps. So yeah, that's my thoughts. So yeah, I'm going to leave it there and see how the discussion carries on, and maybe I'll come back to do some more thoughts of the day. So I hope you have enjoyed this video, and thank you for watching. Yay.